It's hard to believe as we gather on this cool Memorial Day morning in the year 2011 that less than 70 years ago our valley was ripped apart by the heat of discriminatory passions of war. As Japanese Americans fought courageously in far-off lands and seas against the gathered forces of oppression, here at home their loved ones were rounded up and sent away to internment camps. Their homes destroyed, some of their lands taken away or turned over to property caretakers. And abhorrently, the names of 16 Japanese Americans who had selflessly served in the cause of freedom were stripped from the sacred wall erected by the American Legion at the courthouse to forever honor their bravery and their service. In Linda Tamura's book, The Hood River Issei, Mrs. Asayo Noji said, and I quote, "When the Nisei were in the army risking their lives, I thought this was cruel. My thinking was, is this what war brings? But in war there was nothing that could be done. And this gave me a lonely feeling." Mr. Moss Kusachi said, "I quit taking the Hood River news at camp after Nisei names were removed from the honor roll. When I saw that article in the paper, I was very disturbed. America and Japan were at war, but we had no control over that. This was a very barbaric act, and we Hood River Japanese were incensed about it." This is not a proud chapter in the history of the Hood River Valley, and I know it's an agonizing chapter that some would just as soon not reopen. But a wound as deep as this one cannot heal if it is not appropriately treated. And today, we get about that healing process to the best of our ability. Now, nothing we say today can right the wrongs of the past, but hopefully our acknowledgement of those wrongs can help us and those to come from allowing such actions to ever occur again. Today, all across our great country, Americans are gathered in public spaces just like these to recognize and remember all men and women, all Americans of every size and color and creed who have sacrificed so much for so many. I'm reminded of the poignant words of General John Pershing, the commander of the American forces of World War I and the first chairman of the American Battles Monuments Commission. He said of the fallen, "Time will not dim the glory of their deeds." And as long as we continue to gather as we are today, we can make sure his words always ring true. 2 weeks ago, I was fortunate enough to honor a group of 27 World War II veterans to our nation's capital as part of the Eastern Oregon Honor Flight. In addition to breakfast at the House Armed Services Committee room, they received a tour of the U.S. Capitol and had a very special visit to the World War II Memorial, where for the first time in several months, my friend Senator Bob Dole was able to come out and greet World War II veterans again. Included in that group was Bob Maxwell from Bend, Oregon. He's the only living recipient of the Medal of Honor from our great state. Like so many of the greatest generation who left their families and farms to answer the call of service, Bob will tell you he just did what needed to be done at the time. Although one has to wonder how many of us would throw our bodies on a grenade to save the lives of his comrades nearby. Bob did that, and he survived the blast. Just as I'm honored today to thank the guardians of freedom from every war, conflict, and generation, I was especially privileged to thank those 27 World War II vets for protecting the torch of freedom. But words alone are not enough of a tribute. That's why we mark off the land, so we can walk the hallowed ground upon which they fought and died for us. It's why we mark off the land and build monuments in recognition of their bravery and their sacrifice. So from Arlington National Cemetery to Idlewild Cemetery and everywhere in between, we build monuments to heal wounds. We build monuments to live up to General Pershing's expectation that time would not dim the glory of their deeds. The monument we dedicate here today reminds us that in 1941 more than 5,000 Japanese Americans were serving in the United States military. Despite being summarily discharged in the wake of the attack on Pearl Harbor, they convinced the military governor of the islands that they were ready to serve and were eventually redesignated as the 100th Infantry Battalion, sent to the European theater where they made a strong and lasting impression on the Italian front. General Mark W. Clark, the Allies' 5th Army commander, said this of the Nisei: General Marshall gave me very strict personnel instructions to report to him immediately the outcome in the battalion's first baptism of fire. After their first engagement, I said, they performed magnificently on the field of battle. I've never had such fine soldiers. Send me all you got. And we did. You'll find soldiers' names like Mark Nambas on this monument. Mark was interned at the outset of the war, but later was allowed to join the Army, where he served as an interpreter with Allied forces interrogating POWs from the Russian front. He went into business for himself in Tokyo after the war, but eventually returned here to the United States and began farming in our valley. You'll also find the name of my friend Saab Akiyama. He too volunteered to serve his country as a signalman and intelligence specialist, even though his country had sent him to an internment camp. It takes a special person to overcome such hostility and still want to serve his country with courage and with conviction. Thank you to each of you and to all who have served. And while we pay special attention today to the dedication of this monument and all it represents, let us all remember all those who have served and worn our nation's uniform. Let us gaze upon this grassy field and acknowledge those who are not with us, and especially those veterans whose graves are marked by these flags. We may never know all that they did. We may never be able to fully understand all that they endured, but we will always keep bright the glory of their deeds. May God bless them and their families, and may God shine on those who serve today and the families that they leave behind. And may God bless this great country of ours and encourage us to heal the wounds of the past and keep light's eternal flame of freedom burning bright. Thank you.